Any questions from the floor? There's one.
From the childcare industry, we're just saying what Tasha was going on about there. Yes, the people suddenly decided, no, we don't want a mining tax, and they're really supportive of childcare workers getting more pay, but as it turns out, they have to pay for it. So where's the money going to come so that childcare workers get the same as males in the creative industry?
This is absolutely the crux of the debate, is it not? Who's going to fund the shortfall? Who's going to fund the outcome? And surely that's a collaborative response from state and territory, federal government, as well as business and industry. That's why everyone's scrambling at the moment to say, oh, we can't do this, but government's going to have to put that money aside. I'm not suggesting government's a bottomless pit as well. Of course, that's the process of government. You prioritise. When you do your budget, you determine what is a priority for your community. And surely, to this day, whatever era we are in, health, education and those welfare or primary services are key services. That is what I expect of my governments. And that's not to say other things are irrelevant or, or other sectors, but it's redefining those priorities for government as well. And I guess that leads into that sort of notion of public momentum, community momentum. I mean, look, at the last federal budget, the medical research sector, may sound a bit tangential, but were concerned that there'd be cuts to the NHMRC. So they ran a very short-term but effective campaign, whether it was letter writing or articles and whatever. I was stunned, didn't think for a moment they would succeed in stopping the cuts that were impending. The cynical part of me thinks that maybe the government set up the whole campaign so that we all got worried that we were going to get cuts and then we didn't and we're all excited. But it is possible. I know, hey, cynical, bitter, twisted. But I do think that there is always potential as members of the public, as voters, and using media and other tools, as you do on a regular basis, to try and switch those priorities. And because governments, as you well know, and industry are going to be using the same levers, the same targets to put pressure. And I think there's often a reliance in your sectors on, well, they're good people, they're going to do it anyway. These are the people that are traditionally railroaded over in terms of budget priorities as well. And I'm not suggesting that budgets are infinite. But those priorities, governments have to understand, and particularly in Queensland. I mean, it's just, some respects, it's a no-brainer, but reminding it's a no-brainer. And yet, hey, as I was saying to you earlier in the break, sorry, but you're getting Barnaby Joyce at the childcare centre to let him, he can do a shift, not to mention some of your state politicians. But they've got to realise this is serious, Mum. This is actually, this is a pivotal issue for your community as well as, your sector specifically.
Last question from the floor. Anyone? Wallace?
Part of what we were trying to get through this session was actually a bit of a sense about what you see as the essence of women's leadership and what it means to these industries. So if you can maybe just reflect on that and give us some sense around that.
And maybe that's a closing comment opportunity. So in closing, for each of you, what is that?
It's tough in the industry.
I think what we're really good at is being able to sit with complexity and not try and simplify issues. We deal with messy, complex issues and people with messy lives. And I think what we're starting to get good at is letting go of what we think we know and being willing to let some new solutions emerge. And I don't think that's easy, but I think it involves starting to get more interested in the questions than the answers, and recognising that when we try and simplify things, we end up giving one-dimensional responses. So being in conversation, and we've started to get very comfortable with that language of conversation, making sure that our questions are really powerful questions, and questions that if you get the right people together and explore them, will make a difference. I think that's the sort of leadership we're looking for.
Thanks, Melanie. Tasha?
Women in leadership. It was interesting this week, Katie Gallagher became Chief Minister of the ACT, and in an interview she said, I don't mean to be silly, but I'm a woman and so I have a different style. I'm different from perhaps the models of leadership you've had before. Personally, I don't know if that's true. I don't necessarily believe, we're different, we should be equal, but I'm not sure that women necessarily have an ameliorating effect on their environment, certainly political, I can tell you the stories, but maybe in your sector there is a strong argument that there's an element and an attitude of caring and understanding and nurturing But that doesn't negate the fact that women in this sector have also got extraordinary skills as leaders, as managers, as, you know, I'm sure as cutthroat as the rest of them as well. You know, why would we be different from men in some of those respects as well? So I think the issue is respecting and acknowledging that. But also, in this sector, you've produced some of the best leaders, female leaders as well as male leaders, in public policy and public life as well. Look at Karen as an example. So, you know, utilise that. You're fostering a lot of the leaders of tomorrow, be they male or female. They'll just happen to be women. So I think your sector plays an incredible role, and being conscious of that is really important. But, you know, it's about getting more women into those positions of power, including in your sector, in those top echelons.
Well, I'm so pleased this came up, because here's an answer I prepared earlier. I actually didn't know. In fact, I said to Wallace that I was going to use this one-liner, but when he asked me about this, the only thing that I remember him saying was, "Do not wear a mini-skirt on the panel." Nothing else meant anything after that.
That was a good piece of
It was a great piece of information. Those of you who were at the award dinner last night, you would have heard Michael Kirby talk about love. What a fantastic breath of fresh air that was. And I actually thought about it overnight, and I'm reminded of Martin Luther King, who talked about power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is anemic and weak. Now, we can have a big debate about what that actually means, but it strikes me that women in leadership, I see everywhere I look, women in leadership being able to hold power and love in equilibrium in that constant interplay as they do their work. And I think that's something that we've all got to learn by looking at women in leadership. And there are men in leadership who do this very well, but for me, that's something of what we need to explore for the future in terms of what women can offer to this conversation. Thank you.
Catherine.
Gosh, that was a big answer to follow up after. Look, I'm a great believer that good leadership is good leadership is good leadership. And so I think in terms of the female attributes of leadership, that you learn from both men and women. But I do think the connective and the collectivity, I guess, of women talking together, learning from each other, inspiring each other, promoting each other, as in talking up other women, is a really critical part of this. And I hope, I've got a teenage daughter, I hope she's not here having to be asked the same question when she's my age. I suspect we're a short group, that I hope a small group that are moving through this, where we're still thinking about women as leaders, because I think there has been a group of women who perhaps have emulated male leadership, and that's why we think about female leadership. So I'm definitely not a supporter of women who think that male leadership only is the only way forward. But you know, I think it doesn't matter what business we're in, we're always in the business of hearts and minds. We're always in the business of people. It doesn't matter whether we talk finance or sell computers, or like we do, work in community, care, people. So the business of hearts and minds has to be at the forefront of all leadership as well. And I guess that would be my overriding set of values.
Beautiful. Can you join me in thanking our fabulous panel? Val, May, Natasha, Dan and Catherine, just stay sitting for a sec.